Well, what's going on, man? It's good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. Just getting ready to have the pre-Christmas week kick on, and I'm
You got a
ready for
lot going
Christmas.
on? You guys doing a lot of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like going to slow down a little bit because Wayland will kind of shut down after this week, and church stuff will ramp up, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of family stuff. How about you?
I am currently broadcasting from Grand Canyon University and just finished up an exam with our students. So things are winding down here, but church stuff has kicked up into high gear. We try to do Christmas like for a month, right? So everybody's, obviously our culture starts Christmas now. Like I think I saw Christmas stuff before Halloween. And it's kind of like, I don't want to be that church that's like, well, what's our Christmas plan? Well, our whole culture has been celebrating Christmas for a while, but we're going to do a Christmas Eve, right? So we try to do a couple different things to spread it out and give people opportunities to do some fun stuff. So we're busy, but it's good stuff. It's fun. It's just fun stuff to do with family. So that's where we're at, man. So this is definitely a harder season. I'm looking forward to kind of coasting a little bit more soon enough.
Well, I think that might tie into our subject today on Advent and,
Yes.
What is the appropriate pre-Christmas time and celebration and all of that. And so, I'm kind of excited. Also, the 12 days of Christmas are actually the 12 days following Christmas, not leading up to it, which we've got our whole church calendar completely backwards in our culture today, which but we'll have a chance to talk about that.
I want to hear this. So we're singing the song wrong. That should be sung after.
That is Christmas tide. Advent is the lead up. So yeah, it's exciting. But yeah, let's jump into the prayer and we'll just kind of answer some Advent questions and whether we should be doing it as Baptists. All right, let's pray the Lord's Prayer. If you'll all join us. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen.
Man. So Advent, I've seen a lot of other churches do it. We've done it. But I know some people say, isn't that like a Catholic-y thing? And so does it have Catholic roots? Is that where we get this typically?
Yeah, so it wouldn't just be Catholic roots, but it would be related to churches, and obviously Catholics included, that have more of a liturgical year or cycle.
Okay.
And so if we go back to the old church year in the West and the East, they all had some nuances. But the kickoff to the new year was Advent. And I think that was November 30th of this year. And so we are really into the third week of the Christian year. Now, we typically think more of our national year, so we don't really consider that. But if you think about, there's a Chinese New Year, there's American New Year, there's also a church year that many churches hold to. You'd see this in Lutheran, Methodist, Anglican, Catholic, and then Orthodox would have their own year, which is similar to the Western year, but a little bit different, just how they date some events. So Advent is generally leading up to Christmas, but it is the beginning of the church year, and it is a penitential time historically, which we don't talk a lot about penitential seasons in the Baptist world.
No.
So, but the idea is many Christians have heard of Lent, and most evangelicals and Baptists, I kind of lump those categories together sometimes. We don't do a lot with Lent other than kind of maybe joke around that we don't have to give things up, or we gave up giving things up. But
yeah, exactly.
The idea is that as we approach the major Christian holidays, that there should be time of reflection and maybe a time of giving up in preparation to celebrate. And so Christmas tide, or the 12 days of Christmas that we sing about, actually in the old calendar began on Christmas Day and went through Epiphany, which is when you celebrate the wise men, which will be January 6th.
Okay.
And so Advent was supposed to be a time of fasting and giving up and abstaining from things similar to Lent, but not to the extent that Lent is. And the hope was that you would be spiritually preparing yourself to celebrate the Advent of Jesus. And so Baptists historically and evangelicals, in that same vein, we gave up a lot of those holy days. It wasn't just a Protestant thing. It really is kind of other, later Protestant groups that gave up a lot of the holy day celebrations. And the idea was that when you create special times of spirituality, you obviously mark other times as less special. And so those could also lead to days of gluttony or days of overindulgence. So you have Mardi Gras on Fat Tuesday, right? And the reason Fat Tuesday exists is you're going to fatten up before Lent starts on Ash Wednesday. Okay. And so it was seen by some of the kind of later Protestant groups as causing sin rather than devoting every day unto the Lord, as Paul says in Romans. And so, that if you didn't grow up with these traditions, you kind of, that's kind of why the spiritual theological reasoning is we don't want to say that any day is more or less significant. We want to give every day to the Lord. But there's something about human nature, right? That there are seasons, there are special occasions, there are desires for celebrations. And so you see these kind of things kind of creeping back into denominations that kind of disregarded them. And some of it is, the later generations just didn't understand why. And then some of it is also maybe we weren't right. The Bible doesn't forbid celebrations. Paul just kind of doesn't care. If you like this day, great. If you want to observe that, that's fine. But every day is the Lord. So I do think it's an area of Christian conscience. But I think there is a richness to it, because if we'll make a lot of secular holidays, I think it's kind of backwards that we would celebrate secular holidays, but refuse to celebrate Christian holidays because we don't want to, get overindulgent on the off time. What do you think?
Just said about that. I mean, you think about even just how our church runs. I think some of that is about our viewpoint of what church is for, right? And there's a huge debate that rails on, right? Which is church for the Christian, or is church for your witnessing session? And more I've come to the conclusion for me is that I think the Bible shows that it's for his church, it's for his people, and there will be non-Christians that will come. But the point is we can't form our worship service as our evangelism tool. Plus, I don't think that works anymore. But here's what I think is part of that. Is that you think about how the church up until this point has run their calendar. You have to do Mother's Day. You have to do Veterans Day. You have to do Memorial Day. You have to do Father's Day. You have we build it with all these American or all these cultural holidays. Why? Because those are the days people will bring their relatives to come for these things. And I think that is kind of a flawed view of how we should run church, right? But I think that's also something that we're recognizing as well, is maybe that worked for a season of people coming, but more and more that I don't think that's how this is working. I don't think people are saying I've seen this too, instead of people coming for special days now, what do? They go to a meal together, right? So instead of we're all going to go to church because it's Mother's Day and we're going to celebrate, no, we all go to brunch instead of going to church with mom. And so that's the thing, right? I think we have built our calendars to try to appeal, and we've tossed out a biblical one because that's unappealing. And now we're realizing now we have no calendar at all because nobody comes to the other one anyways. And so, I think it's a great thing to kind of call back to some sort of a calendar that revolves around our holidays and significant events for the church.
I agree, and we talked about Hanukkah before. And, one of the interesting things is that on that 12th month, the 25th of the month, which wasn't our 25th of December, but it correlates in some way that the 25th is the day that you could remember the dedication of the temple and the lighting of the oil. And so I do see some correlation to celebrating Christmas with the birth of Christ, whether or not he was born on the 25th. I'm not worried about that. But what you saw is as the church was expanding, they would take over holidays that were secular and Christianize them. And so Advent ends up becoming that preparation time for the day that we have set aside to celebrate the birth of Jesus. Sorry, were you going to say something there?
No, man.
So again, I have a lot of people, even in my own church or that I've run into that kind of look at the pagan roots underneath some of those dates and then say we shouldn't celebrate any of it. And really, that's kind of going back a little bit to that other idea of we'll just not celebrate anything. But then you find that you're celebrating other things. And so I kind of ask the question, why can't we celebrate the Christian things as well? And we just want to make sure that whatever we're doing, we're truly doing it unto the Lord. So Advent has been around for a long, long time. Now in the Eastern Orthodox, they have a nativity fast, which is actually another Lent. It's 40 days. It starts off in November, 40 days prior to Christmas, and they do a hard core fast. So they almost have 2 Lents in their calendar. The West is a little less rigorous. And at this point in time, fasting rules, even in the Catholic world, are so light that I'm not sure many people are fasting much at all. But the idea is, rather than be a consumer-driven time, and rather than have this as an opportunity just to go and get Christmas lights up early, about 4 weeks before Christmas, we begin getting ourselves spiritually into that anticipation of Christmas. And I think there's something really great about that, because it's countercultural, right? Rather than get all out and celebrate, what if we rolled back and we kind of built in and we brought in some giving up of some things. And then, we've really celebrated Christmas, and rather than take all your lights in the tree down the day after, the first week of January, let it up for a week, and kind of go against the flow, just because our culture is just so focused on things that aren't necessarily scriptural. So I do see there's some reclaiming to Christian culture through these practices, and also some connection with other denominations, which I don't think it's a bad thing. I think in the future, we're going to have so much opposition to Christianity that any way we can tie into the broader Christian tradition might be helpful. So, so I think Advent's a good practice. I don't think it's required. Most churches aren't really doing it well. They're throwing some candles up and they don't really, talk about it too much. A lot of the Advent for evangelicals is we have a wreath on Sunday.
I mean, that's the extent that I know, is light the candle, read a passage. What else do you do typically to celebrate this and make it special? Yeah.
So the Advent wreath is actually a Lutheran invention, I think from the 1800s. And it was a way of kind of counting down the days, and it kind of spread. And so you've kind of seen a development, and I was really struggling through this doing worship and trying to say, well, what is the standard for Advent? And there seems to be kind of a standard, but I've actually rejected it because it looked to me like it was a little haphazard. So I have my own Advent countdown. You want to hear that?
I want to hear
it. Somebody in the comments, feel free to chastise me. But the week 1 candle of hope, right? Or the prophet's candle. We'll light the candle, maybe read Jeremiah 33. Week 2 is the Bethlehem candle. And in some places, this one's referred to, let me just see, this is the candle of peace. And my problem with that is why peace for Bethlehem? I guess it's the angels, but you'll find out that they grab the character attributes and they link it to characters. And this is the deviation I have. I kind of am going back to the 3 cardinal virtues, the 3 spiritual virtues of faith, hope, and love. So I've created a candle of faith because I wanted to be different. So I've got hope, then faith for Bethlehem. And then I've got the shepherd's candle, which is joy. And this is the joy week, which it's called the Godet candle. And it's to celebrate the halfway point. So you've been giving up something as you're getting ready. And so you're halfway there. So that's where the pink candle comes in. So if you've got your 2 purples and a pink, the angel's candle is then the 4th candle. So this one is where I put peace, because the angel actually says, peace, goodwill.
Keep talking. My lights went out. I'm listening.
Okay. And then, a lot of times people will have this as the love candle. So the original Advent candles did not have 5 candles, Advent wreaths. A lot of churches today are using 5 candles, and they'll use a Christmas Eve service and light a white candle in the center as and so since love is one of the weeks, what I've done is I've bumped love to Christmas Eve. And so I have the Christ candle, which is the white candle, as the candle of love. And so we'll light that on Christmas Eve. So I'm pretty happy with my invention, because we've got faith, hope, and love, along with joy and peace. And
so clarify that again. So you say you do 6 candles?
Five candles.
5 candles. The center white one is the Christ candle.
Right.
And you said, what do we do with churches, though, that on Christmas Eve, you light it that night, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So the original Advent wreath, well, it's had some adaptations. Again, it's not even that old. It's only a couple hundred years old.
It's hard to, as you're going through too, to be like, okay, which one is which? Because they all have different names, and some of them have different readings. It's very interesting to try. And
some people do characters. So this is shepherds, this is prophets, this is Bethlehem. I've tried to link the character or the place with a virtue. And since we do the Christ candle, I moved love to Christmas Eve, which left me a hole. And so faith is not normally one of your 4 virtues, but how do you leave faith out when faith, hope, and love abide these? So I added faith in, and I thought that worked well with Bethlehem. So prophets is hope, Bethlehem is faith. Then I do shepherds is joy, and angels is peace. So that's kind of how I do it. My church didn't know any better. And again, I found so much disputing traditions, because again, this is not like a top down, this is how you do Advent rule. It's kind of developed over the last couple hundred years. And the idea is just like Hanukkah, you can actually have one of those wreaths in your house, and you have some readings and things. I think Lifeway Resources put out a family Advent PDF that you could bring home and make art projects. And so there's a lot of ways to do that. And it might be a way, instead of, if you don't want to do Hanukkah, that you could bring in more during the season to kind of teach the Christmas story. And so there is a richness there. I think it's something that also what I like about it is it's a way to re-Christianize Christmas, because so much of what we're doing isn't even about Jesus anymore. And, I like the idea of being intentional about doing some things that are about Christ. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I think the one thing that you're talking about, though, too, is giving up something to go along with it, to make it to where we're waiting for that day for something, right? And I think that's helpful too. Yeah, I just I like that idea of having this also in your home, to be able to go through it, because there's Advent for everything now, right? There's Advent chocolates and Advent books, and it's all about just pick one up and this is this day, this is this day. But I do think there's something special about, we're going to do our reading. This is how we're going to celebrate this as we get ready. I think that's a good idea. And I do think you're right too. Like, it doesn't matter if Jesus was born in spring. This is the time in which we choose to celebrate this day, a real day that really existed. And this is the tying in of that. And so we build up to that, of how important it is. But I think that's one of the things, if done well, and if those candles really are, those themes are really pulled out, and the passages if the passages really tie in to that, then I think it can make sense. Because I think sometimes I've seen it too, where you'll have a candle, but then you read the passages and you're like, what does this have to do with that candle, right? And I think having some sort of game plan of how each one is representative of something, where it ties into that, where it's really the prayers or the readings are specific, and they are very helpful in getting you there. I think that's something, instead of just, because I think it loses its meaning when you just, here we go, we light the candle, here's some passages from old, passages from new, and you're sitting there saying, what are the connections here, right? So I don't know, I think that's helpful, like tying it in, making it tighter, and making it really connect.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that bothered me as I was trying to figure it out. There's better resourcing today, and it seems to be reaching maybe a standard. My standard might get blown away by some, but I don't care. We'll use it in my church because we're Baptist. The whole point that I'm trying to go for is that whatever we're doing, that we are doing something intentional, like you say. that the readings do line up, because I totally agree. If you pulled stuff off the internet and grabbed 3 or 4 places, in week 4 in some camps is the love and it's peace, and others the readings don't line up with what the candles are, and then somebody will say, oh, it's Angels Week. Oh, I thought it was Peace Week. Well,
Yeah.
There's just been layers added to this as families and different churches have done it, that it really doesn't have a true standard. From what I found, what is standard is Advent season is standard, that there is a 4-week expectation for Christmas, and then giving up. Historically, there was the not eating meat on Fridays, or maybe you hold off on your favorite Christmas pie until after Christmas, just to make a point or a statement, or you just do some intermittent fasting. So normally I've done a challenge where I take 2 or 3 days a week and don't eat except 1 meal a day with your family at night, and if you're hungry during the day, devote a little time to prayer. I will say this, one of the things I found with fasting is I do tend to be legalistic personality wise, and you can do a lot of giving up of things, but if you don't replace what you're giving up spiritually with nourishment, you're just fasting. You're just so that's a challenge I keep bringing to myself, is if I'm going to do something, I need to make sure that I'm also doing something devotional. And that's where I think the candles and something with the family comes in, where you have a little more structure to what you could be doing devotionally besides just giving up.
Yeah. Well, so is there any, so typical Advent is you mark the calendar, and it's how many days? Is it based on weeks, or is it days? Yeah,
it's based on the 4 Sundays before Christmas.
Okay, so you go 4 Sundays before Christmas Eve, right?
Well, Christmas Day, really. Christmas Eve is. Day. Yep. By the way, I don't know. I've heard of churches that are taking Sundays off because they're doing so much on Christmas Eve. That just seems crazy to me. But anyway, that would be. We should do something on the Lord's Day. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
But
no, there's a time where sometimes I just wonder. I mean, that's a whole nother discussion of like the people. I feel like sometimes that's just phoning it in because you're tired and you don't want to do it. If at Christmas Sunday's happening, man, and you come back and you do it again because that's the point. But so that's something I think it's interesting. I like this whole idea of we're marking our season, because that's the thing is I think we do have to figure out as church people, how do we retake our holiday? That's a whole nother video for another time, maybe next week if we want to, or something about how much tradition, how much culture has infiltrated. But I think Advent, this is a simple one of like, just begin to read. And I don't think it, I think I'd like to look a little bit more and find either a more consistent set of readings, or design it myself in the sense of things that I'd like to, like, here's what these candles are supposed to represent. And then here's where I think are reading that we should involve ourselves in, I think that's helpful. I've heard of people who mark the holiday, and they one of the things they do is they try to get rid of all extravagance for the month, so things that they're normally used to getting, which are extra, like things that they would normally put money out for, that they take away all of that. And even on Christmas Eve, they mark that day as like they try to even do a meal to try to mark it to what would that first night have even been like, what might have been things they've eaten, just basics. And then Christmas comes with a bang, right? That the extravagance comes because of marking the day, so I like that too, of just something that you incorporate. What do you pull out to get ready for the excitement of the big day that's coming? The problem is, we have so much extravagance leading up all the time. And I like that. I mean, I like that we do it, but even then, like, what are we doing in that extravagance to point to this Christmas story? Or are we just overwhelmed with the thought or the culture or the feeling of what Christmas should be? Because in our culture, Christmas should be a white Christmas with Christmas cookies. I mean, that's what we sing about. And that's like I said, that's our next video, right? About all that kind of stuff. But anyways, Hey man, I like that. That's good stuff.
I just one last thought there. If you haven't done anything with Advent, I would say that it's not too late. This last Sunday will be the final Sunday, and then you're counting down to Christmas Eve. So you could just do kind of an abbreviated thing with the family and get yourself a few candles, and you can find plenty of stuff. Lifeway does have a little PDF that you can download. And so if you just wanted to kind of do a condensed final countdown to Christmas, you still could do that. I encourage you to do something like that. And then I think the fasting, one of the things that's helpful is, rather than abstaining the entire season, picking, I'll give up something on these Fridays. So I can still kind of play both sides a little bit, because there's so many work Christmas parties and things. It really is hard to connect our cultural expectations and then spiritual desires. So there are some fun ways, but yeah, that would be a whole another episode. How do we do it? And then can we do it corporately? Because that's the other thing too, is we do so much individualistically. And I do like the idea of, what if we all did it together, So cool deal. Yeah. Well, that's all I had.
Well, man, I thank you. This is a nice short one, like the Hanukkah one. So I appreciate it, man. Thanks for doing that with me. Sorry, my lights went out in the middle of this, but that's what you get with motion. Motion sits when you sit still and engaged. You want me to finish this up in here?
Yeah, close this out.
Let's do it. Here we go. May the Lord bless you and keep you and make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. God bless you guys. Thanks for watching. It's been another one in the can, man. Yeah. Have a happy Advent season. Wait, hold on. Forgot one thing. The 12 days. So after Advent, you go 12 more days to get ready for the wise men, correct?
Yeah.
So we sing the song afterwards, not before.
Because they weren't there.
Do you know why there's 12 gifts?
Well, 12, I just think Epiphany was, that's what they call the coming of the wise men, Epiphanies. And so they just kind of set that 12 days after. I'd have to look into why it's 12 days. But yeah, it's.
But I'm saying, like, is there tradition of gift giving afterwards for 12 days, like the song, or is that just, whatever?
Well, we could hunt it down and do one in next year. I'd be speaking out of ignorance, half the time I am anyway. What does a Baptist know about this stuff?
Well, you brought it up, man. I just thought, who knows? So, okay, so there you go. I don't know, but I don't want to sing that song anyway. So, but I'll sing it after Christmas. Thanks. I'm sorry. It was just a thought that I'd had. And I know you addressed part of it, but I wanted to get back in. All right. Hey, I'm done.
All right. Hey, take care. Have a good one.
Take care. Bye-bye.